Let's make a cute beginner-friendly heart-shaped cake with lots of edible glitter. I made this for someone's 21st birthday, but you could do this for any occasion. I'm flavoring my faux Swiss meringue buttercream with a strawberry emulsion, which is a more concentrated flavor. The color from the emulsion actually dyed the buttercream this pretty pale pink color, and I'll put all the links to everything I used and all my recipes down below. Here's the exact tools that I used to create this cake. I'm using a Fancy Sprinkles dusting pump, and then I'm going to put some edible glitter into that. Now, I've tried a bunch of them, and this is my favorite so far. It does come with this really cute little funnel, which is actually very practical in order to get your edible glitter into it. You'll need a silicone mold for your decorations. What you do is you put the melted chocolate into it, let it set, and then peel them out. And finally, I'm using a cake drum. You can use a cake board, but I prefer cake drums because they look more professional, they add height to your cake, especially if you're making it for a customer. I also recommend using a turntable, and the reason why is because it's a heart shape, so it's a little more difficult to smooth the icing out as opposed to a round cake. A turntable is really going to help you out if you're interested in cake decorating. You want to make sure that your cakes are chilled and they're nice and cool and that they're leveled. Now, one tip that I have for decorating is to put your cake layers into the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes before you start decorating. This is going to help to just not worry about all those messy crumbs, and it just makes the whole process a lot more beginner friendly. You can add a filling if you'd like. I added some fresh strawberries, and then I'm going to put on my second layer of cake, and I'm just going to add some more of that buttercream so that we can start smoothing down the top. I really love using an offset spatula, and I definitely recommend it, again, if you're interested in cake decorating. So in order to get that icing onto the sides of the cake, you have a couple different options. You can use a knife, you can use a spatula, or you can also use a piping bag tip and a pastry bag, like this one right here. This is the Ateco 789 ribbon pastry tip. Now, this isn't necessary, but I do recommend it for beginners because it really helps to get an idea about how much buttercream you should be putting onto the sides of your cake. You also want to do this with the flat side up so that the ridges aren't going to be showing on the cake. When I first started working in a bakery, I used this tip a lot, and it helped me to understand just how much you need to put on there. If the sides of your cake have a lot of bubbles or they're not very smooth looking, it's usually because you're not adding enough icing. So no matter what method you use, make sure that you add more icing than you probably need onto there. Another tool that you want to use, and I know that I keep adding more and more tools, but these are just some of the basic tools of cake decorating. This is the bench scraper, and it's really helpful to get those smooth sides on your cake. Now, the heart shape is a little bit more difficult at the top, so you just want to really follow the cake itself and just don't try to pull off too much icing. You want to hold it at a 45-degree angle and just really gently go over the cake a few times. And if you have any holes on the sides of your cake, just add more icing and keep repeating the process until it's nice and smooth. Those edges that you see around the cake that are sticking up, you also want to scrape those down either with your offset spatula or your bench scraper. Unfortunately, my camera didn't record that part, and I didn't notice until after this cake has already been gone and eaten. Before I pipe on a border, I'm just going to spray the cake with the edible glitter. You want to make sure that you have some parchment paper down on your table, otherwise your table is going to be super glittery. Now we're going to get into piping our borders. So I'm using an Ateco 869 French star tip, and I'm going to show you guys a quick demonstration. You really just kind of want to push the buttercream out and then pull it down. You can see the difference between the first one and the second one. In the second one, to get that clamshell appearance, I'm really pushing out the buttercream, kind of lifting up my tip and then pulling it down, still with the same amount of pressure. Now I'm using even pressure to push out the icing, and I'm also doing that up and down motion at the same time. Then with your other hand, you want to just very gently turn the turntable so that you can kind of do this in one continuous motion. Now, something to keep in mind is that piping is hard. It does take a lot of practice, and my skills are not where I want them to be, so you just have to keep up with it. If you like, you can practice beforehand. You can try to pipe onto the bench scraper like you saw me doing, or onto some parchment paper, just in order to get comfortable with the motions. In between piping, you want to clean off your tip. This is just going to help to keep things looking nice and neat. So we're going to start with a border on the top. And I decided that I wanted to do this border in the same type of way, but I'm doing it a little bit looser and I'm just kind of working faster than I did at the bottom. This creates a little bit more looser of a clamshell look. And I kind of like the contrast between the top and the bottom, but you can do this whatever way that you would like. Then I like to add just a little dollop in the middle to give it that heart shape. So now I'm going to go and move on to use the Ateco 22 Open Star tip. It's smaller than the last tip, but it still has a same type of clamshell look. I'm holding the piping bag a bit more horizontal to the cake, and I'm just going to try to work again in one continuous motion. It's okay to pause in order to push down some more buttercream because it's hard to hold a bunch of buttercream in one hand. Also, this is random, but when I first saw this style of piping, I was just so interested by it because it was really intricate. And I looked it up, and apparently it's Victorian style piping, or it's also called overpiping or the Lambeth method decorating technique, which is just so cool to me because all the skill that goes into piping these cakes is crazy. So anyway, back to the tutorial. I'm going to now add on our second border, but I'm actually putting this underneath the first border as opposed to inside. I just felt like doing that because I didn't want the numbers 21 to get kind of lost in too thick of a border. Then I went ahead and I added on some more edible glitter so that everything can be super shiny. And I added some sixlets because the inspiration picture that the customer wanted had these pink pearls, and sixlets really come in handy for this. First, you want to use melting chocolate in order to set your numbers or letters really quickly. And you also want to make sure that you're using a toothpick to really make sure that that melted chocolate gets into every single little nook and cranny. It's just that sometimes when you peel these out of the mold, they have these little air bubbles where the chocolate didn't really get into, and it doesn't really look that nice. Another tip I have for when you put the chocolates onto your cake is try to use a spatula because it can be really easy to accidentally get some fingernail marks on the cake, and that does not look very cute. Something important that I forgot to mention is that this is a 2-layer 6-inch heart-shaped cake, and this is really good for feeding about 10 people. Really depends on how big you cut your slices. Also, this cake looks really cute under some light, so I flashed my phone on it so you guys can see how it looks, especially if you're making it to take to like a restaurant or some type of birthday party. If it has a light on it, it looks extra sparkly. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this. I hope that you guys like this tutorial. If there's any other types of tutorials you want me to show you that are beginner friendly, please let me know. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.